Sea forts are a brand new encounter that we're adding into the Sea of Thieves, where players will sail towards an inhabited Spanish naval fort on their ship, dodge the incoming fire from those cannonballs. They can take out gunpowder barrels on the sides on their way in.
You'll fight through those waves of phantoms, and then at the end there'll be a phantom captain who's especially not pleased that you're there. Defeating the phantom captain, we'll see him drop a key to the fort treasury where there'll be plenty of loot, some of it ghostly, some of it a bit more mysterious, and then you'll get to take that away and cash it in.
So there's 6 different sea forts across the 3 core world regions of the Sea of Thieves, and if the lights are on, the phantoms are home and players can kind of go in and have this encounter. But there's no kind of big world event cloud in the sky that's drawing players in. It's just kind of a more localized event, more akin to like the shipwrecks or the treasuries that we have in the world already.
On the approach to the sea fort, I didn't want to give too much away. So I wanted it to sort of sound quite mysterious, but not overly foreboding or anything. And then as you get sort of to the end of that piece of music, you kind of get like a dry funeral drum almost. It's a snare drum with the snare turned off, one of the best sounds in the world. So it starts off quite mysterious and then it kind of goes apprehensive, I suppose.
So when combat starts, the music will kind of be blaring, everything's really exciting, phantoms are popping up all over the place.
The first thing we want to do is create a sense of space. Our audio director, John Vincent, just got the idea of reusing actually a ship occlusion system and have it on the fort.
So if there are phantoms upstairs, it'll sound like they're upstairs, and if your friends are fighting sort of downstairs or upstairs, you'll also get a sense of that space as well.
Once a fort has been completed by a crew and they leave that island, there's a short cooldown before the fort will be occupied again by the phantoms once more. And once it's been reoccupied, players can go back to that fort and engage in that combat again.
With the sea forts, we thought more about providing a shorter session experience for players, one that was still rewarding. Even in the short time that they're playing, they can still go to the sea fort and collect rewards and have a load of fun in an awesome environment with music and amazing gameplay. But at the same time come back to the outpost after a short session, cash in their rewards and then log off the game if they choose to at that point with a real feeling of accomplishment.
It's a Spanish fort with Spanish soldiers occupying it, so I wanted to reflect that in the instrumentation. I've got an old beaten up guitar in the loft, which is my son's one from primary school, which he never plays anymore. So it's a kid's model to get that sort of Spanish flavour. And my trumpet that played very bright with lots of vibrato to give that Spanish authentic kind of feel to it. The main sort of element for me in combat music is the tempo. It's something sort of fairly up-tempo and upbeat. With this music, I used the guitar as a percussive instrument. I'm not a great guitar player, but I could sort of strum and hit patterns and rhythms with it.
A big part of what we wanted to achieve with sea forts was ensuring that they could be used for role play with crews. We wanted the sea forts to almost be like a homestead for the crew inside the Sea of Thieves.
So you can imagine a soldier needs to eat and sleep and do their job defending this fort. Previously, we've had forts in Sea of Thieves operated by skeletons. Skeletons don't need to eat or sleep, but human soldiers do, right? That's kind of what we try to tell, where there's different areas in every single fort that serve their own function, and we've tried to connect these in as logical way as we could, basically.
So we tried to make a bit of a sonic marriage between what feels like a lived-in space with the Spanish soldiers, but what also now feels like a haunted space that's been overrun by those phantoms. And also with the bell, the processing that we did on the bell is similar to the processing that was done on the phantoms, at least from a tonal perspective.
I actually mixed and blended different bell sounds. I've got a big wok in my studio and I just hit it with the metal pieces, and I've just mixed that all with the bell sounds just to give a more harsh and colder and just more anxious feel when the bell's ringing.
We wanted it to feel like you're invading someone's property and then you're kind of ransacking and rummaging through all their drawers and cupboards for all of their kind of trinkets and treasures that you can then take out. So we've got a lot of interactivity around that. We have some cool kind of mechanisms in the lower basement of the sea fort that will help players take the treasure out of the treasury and quickly get them back onto their ships so that that experience can remain as short as possible for players.
You can also defend the fort. Once you've claimed it from the phantoms, that fort is yours. It's not going to reactivate and become re-inhabited with phantoms until players leave and have left for a certain amount of time. So if you stay on that fort, you can claim it as yours.
We've also got a big map wall in the sea fort, which, if players do choose to bring their session on longer, straight from the sea fort, they can plan out an adventure together. We've set up 4 different interaction points around the map, so players can all stand around the map and interact with it at once, and just allow players to plan out their adventure in a fun space and role play.
So depending on the region of the world that you're in, the sea forts that you might come across are different. Each sea fort in each world region has a different kind of theme, as if they've been kind of brought in from the Sea of the Damned and in different kind of states.
You can imagine that these have been built from the same blueprint by the same building contractor, for example. Then, as they've appeared, they've had a different history. Some have been disused, some are still in use. You can kind of see that they've all had its different stories and histories happen inside them. Then there's also the nature element aside from that, where they're in different locations in the world, so different elements of nature have had their effects as well. And we've tried to blend that all together to create a unique look for every single one of these forts.
We wanted to kind of go for something new and make them sound different to any other space in Sea of Thieves. And we also wanted them to feel unique because every sea has its own style of sea fort. The Wild sounds a lot gloomier and spookier than the Shores of Plenty, for example. In the Ancient Isles, where it's all overgrown, I've added in some new ambience for the wildlife, new insects that you can hear, slightly different birds and things like that. So it really feels a lot more present and overrun than any other kind of nature area that we have in Sea of Thieves so far. And there's also a lot of little ear snacks that you'll hear when you're exploring the fort as well. So little creature sounds that you might hear. In the Wild forts in particular, I've kind of got a sound that you'll hear every so often that kind of feels like someone's sort of behind you, like little kind of things that make you kind of turn your head and feel like they're kind of popping up, but you can't quite track down where they're coming from to make it have that haunted vibe.
There's always a balance to find where something needs to be fit for gameplay but also needs to look nice. These forts in particular were really fun and challenging because we're not really used to doing much architectural work in Sea of Thieves. But these forts, you find a lot more hatches and doors and gates and mechanisms and all these kinds of man-made things.
There's a lot of twists and turns in the level design as well, which can keep players on their toes. They'll have to watch around every corner to make sure there's not a phantom there to take them out.
So sea forts are a very different type of environment, and whether players are going there for combat or whether they're going there to role play with their crew, I think there's a lot that they're going to kind of get out of this, and we can't wait to see how they're going to be used by players.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you just saw and want to stay up to date with all the latest Sea of Thieves news, then hit subscribe and click that little ship's bell for all those notifications. Cheers.